3 acres of poor to medium agricultural land like this, with a cottage placed on the 3 acres, looks like after 14 years of planting a food forest. This is Bealtaine Cottage. These are my 3 acres, and what you see now is 3 acres of food forest and beautiful woodland, all planted by myself, one woman. My name is Colette. I'm age 62. I came here 14 years ago to what was 3 acres of monoculture, poor land, and an old cottage. This is the driveway of my home. So I'm just going to talk you through how I started planting, why I think the planting has been so successful, and how this land can actually look with a little bit of care and love. So the first thing that I did was to mark out paths. So I got myself a lawnmower and I just cut paths through the rushy field. And these paths I walked and continue to walk over the 14 years. I'm going to take you along these paths now. And you'll see there are very few rushes left. What you see is mostly woodland. I didn't just plant trees, because to plant trees on their own does not give the trees enough protection and security in which to grow. So I planted trees and lots of shrubs and ground cover and low growing plants. So you can see just some of what I planted here on the entrance to the cottage. So virtually all the trees are deciduous trees. There are some evergreens, and those evergreens I grew from seed, so each one is slightly different. Some of the western red cedars actually smell of pineapple, so you have a diversity even amongst them. So here you can see willow, green beech, plum, cotoneaster, rowan, birch, spruce, fuchsia, cedar, and so on. Everything's planted very tightly together, and the reason why I did this was because the land was so poor that I thought it would be advantageous to the plants to be close together. So you'd have this leaf drop, as you can see down here. You'd have the leaf drop, and also, more importantly, I regularly carry out what I call a chop and drop. And the chop and drop helps to build fertility and helps to build soil. Now, I didn't import anything onto this land, nor did I use chemicals to kill anything. So I'm just looking at the field next door, and that was basically what I had 14 years ago. I'll do a 180-degree turn, and this is what I have now. So it's very dense woodland. Planting closely together goes against all the horticultural advice and all the horticultural rules, especially on poor land, because poor land usually means that the land itself cannot sustain that degree of planting. But as you can see for yourself, it has. So just looking into the hedgerow, you can see where I've been doing some chop and drop even just today. So I've been cutting back some of the laurels, and what I do is I pack them all in, as you can see, behind other shrubs and trees that I've already planted. And that builds up fertility. Amazingly it does. Just look down the driveway. Okay, so we'll go in on the first path. Now 13 years ago, last year, 2017, I made a video about the 13 years of permaculture and the evolution to goddess permaculture. This being the 14th year, so we're a year further on, what has happened is that it's now become very much an established woodland. I think you'll agree with me. So we'll go down along the path. All these paths were just cut out of the rushy field originally, and for years and years I was mowing them continually and using all the grass cuttings as a fertiliser. So it was absolutely imperative to have a lawnmower and to mow, because that was basically the fertiliser that I was using. As the years progressed, I then got rid of the flush toilet in the cottage and got a compost toilet going. So you can see some of the little mushrooms down here. These mushrooms, of course, the fungi, which are all over the land now through the trees, denote the health of the woodland. Here you can see willow, which was twisted together initially just to form something of a sculpture and eventually a tree. Lots of lichens everywhere, which again say something about the purity of the air and the good oxygen content. So the paths mostly run parallel with the road, and the road is just out there. So we're going to walk through. So the paths now don't need a lawnmower, they don't need mowing. They are completely self-sustaining and in fact regenerative woodland paths. This is the average girth of trees here at Bealtaine, and if I put my hand on that you can see the size. Okay? These are ash trees. I only recently crowned some of these trees. You can see where I've taken off the lower branches, and the ash trees are growing very well. Now I'm sorry if I'm moving a little bit fast here, but I need to cover the 3 acres. And even though 3 acres isn't a lot of land, because it's been planted so densely and because of all the paths, it does take some time to get round. Here we have more mushrooms. You can see there's lots and lots. So this is another tree. This is a birch tree, and that's planted in beside willow. So I would have put the willow cuttings in there initially in order just to protect the small birch. Now there is a pond here, a lot of pondweed in there at the moment. That's usually cleared sometime around October, November. And you can see some of the low growing bushes, spindle, which is a native tree, a native bush. And you can see I've been harvesting quite a lot of the willow. So on the left here, lots of ash trees. This is a little stream that runs down along into the pond, and it's coming through from this side here. Now I'm not actually going to get round the entire 3 acres, but I'm going to take you on a very quick guided tour. Okay. Now there is a website, bealtainecottage.com. There's over 15,000 photographs, so you can have a really good look on there. And there's also before and after photographs. This is an oak tree, and you can see the girth on this oak tree there if I put my hand against it. So this tree here is about 12 to 13 years old, and it's absolutely massive, one of the biggest trees on the property. So the oak trees grow really fast, but then initially, well, years ago, Ireland was covered with oak trees. So I believe that the earth holds the memory of the oak. We'll just look back on that. You can see cherry trees and quercus oak. Lots of different species. lots and lots of leaf fall, and this is just the beginning of the leaf fall. So that's building up fertility all the time. Just going to cross this little stream. You can see the stream runs down there into what is a silt pond. And you can see some of the beautiful big ferns. Now the ferns are relatively new to this site because in the beginning there were no ferns at all. But you'll see a lot of ferns now. So the trees I've grown from seed. I've collected little saplings. I've bought bare-rooted trees. You usually get those for a couple of euro each towards the end of the autumn in the garden centres. So again, you can see the richness and the fertility just continually building here. These are primroses. Look at these massive ferns. And again, it's just become so rich and fertile. So in 14 years there's been this amazing transformation from what was just monoculture, monoculture devastation. Because I think much of the land in the west of Ireland has been totally devastated with the impact of cattle and sheep. And of course that's not long-term food. In fact, unless you've got a freezer, killing an animal is only going to keep you going for about 3 days before it starts to rot. But more often than not you will hear people saying, oh well, it's poor land, you can't grow anything. Well, I think that I've proved that nonsense to be, as I said, nonsense. There's some little ferns that are just beginning to grow from there. So there's a lot of beauty here. There's a lot of birds, there's a lot of frogs, mammals. These 3 acres now maintain a lot of life. It's, you know, just maintain and support a lot of life. In the beginning there was a sense of sustainability being the operative word within permaculture and organic growing, etc. Well, I say no, sustainable is no longer enough at all. I know people are writing about this now, but I've been saying this for years. We should never have used the word sustainable. Sustainable just means keeping the status quo, and the status quo was absolutely appalling. We need to be talking regenerative. So if land, or at least part of your land, is not regenerative, then you are destroying. You are destroying not just habitat, but you are destroying the future of humankind. So, how's this for a feast for the eyes? Look at the colours. Look at the colours and the abundance. And the protection that there is in here. I witnessed during some of the most recent storms where we're having extreme climatic conditions, extreme weather events, and I noticed that there was a lot of birds literally flying into this land, into the woodland, and they were flying in for protection. So this is another one of those long paths that cut right across the centre of Bealtaine Cottage Woodland Sanctuary, which is what I call it. So I've been down here today cutting back a lot of the willow. This is willow that's fallen over. So I've piled it up. So that's how it will stay over the course of the autumn and winter and spring. And that will again provide habitat, help creatures through what is threatened to be now quite a harsh winter. Meteorologists are talking about a winter similar to that of 2010, 2011. So it's imperative that there is lots of habitat available for all those little creatures that need to live. If they don't live, we don't live. A very simple message. So I make it my business to ensure that there's lots of habitat in and around Bealtaine Cottage. That's a Scots pine. And there's more willow which I've cut. Now of course all this can simply stay down here in the woodland, and it can be retrieved in stages over the course of the spring and summer and next autumn. So this is water running from the spring well, and it's a little well that I dug out myself back in 2000 and I think it was 2005 or 2006. But since the day I dug this little spring well out, it's been running, and that's been feeding the pond. I'm just walking up alongside the little stream bed that I dug out. Notice I didn't dig a straight line. I firmly believe that straight lines are an abomination within nature, and we should be keeping to curves and the patterns that we see all around us. So lots of goat willow as well, and here's lots more ash. Now there's a lot of ash self-seeding. Here's a little one here. So in fact, you know when people say, oh, if you just take the animals off the land, things will happen. Well, things won't happen. You actually have to get onto that land physically and start the ball rolling, and that's what I've done here. So by clearing paths, by keeping the animals off the land, by planting little trees, by sowing seeds, by doing chop and drop, a woodland has emerged. So this is a little area that I call the Fairy Wood. And this is a very beautiful little area. The whole land, by the way, is north facing, and it's sloping away towards the north. So here I'm looking uphill, and in fact the cottage would be somewhere about 10 feet above me at this point. So the land slopes away to the north. We'll just walk out now towards the west. There is a map of Bealtaine Cottage. Well, it's a magical, mythical map, but the map itself is true to form, and that's on the website. That can be ordered on the website. So again, this little part of the land, it's in a dell, like a little woodland dell, because we're climbing upwards now, up and out of it, onto the little steps just below the cottage. So this is a small clearing, tiny little bit of lawn. This is a cherry tree that I brought from London in a paper cup 14 years ago, and again if I put my hand against it you can get an idea of the girth. Absolutely beautiful. Lots and lots of fruit on that during the summer, which I leave for the birds. This here's a damson tree. You can just see some of the damsons still there. Most of them have been picked. It's an apple tree there in front. So these steps were made from stones dug out from where the pond is now, cut stones, so indicative of ancient settlements here. Now this is where the health really begins to show, because of course there's the cottage. So I'm still standing down below the cottage here, the top of the steps. And you can see here lots and lots of shaggy inkcap mushrooms. And they're all around. I'm just focusing on one of them there. So lots of shaggy inkcaps. In fact, I had some guests during the week, and we came out and we harvested some of these and went back in and fried them up with some garlic and had them on toast, and absolutely gorgeous. So these have come up on their own. I haven't sown any mushroom spores. So all this is the harvest and the bounty of Mother Earth herself. I think she's quite pleased with the way I'm caretaking the land. And of course in return, I now live amongst all this beauty. So I'm looking down now into the fairy wood. So I'm still considerably below the cottage. So you can see when I said the cottage was about 10 feet above me. Now we're walking up. There's more little shaggy inkcap mushrooms there. They seem to be spreading year on year. So that's the cottage. Very small driveway. We'll come back to that. It's going towards the back. This is going up towards some more of the apple trees and the black currants. Another little path that leads round to the cottage. And this little path leads down into the fairy wood. Lots of black currants here. Pyracantha, cotoneaster. There's a big cooking apple just fallen down on the ground there. That's the Bramley apple tree. Eating apple tree. So we'll come round this way, through these little archways, and we'll come back down and round. You're probably lost by now. So these are the bins where I put all the compost toilet emptyings. They stay in the bins for about a year and a half or so, and then they're good to use on the land. This is a little cherry tree here, another apple tree. Lots of raspberry canes. Polytunnel there. I'll show you inside there shortly. I'll just walk back here to show you the steps up from the fairy wood, and again just to give you an idea of the levels of falling away to the north. This is a badger set. Of course, any badger who manages to find their way to Bealtaine Cottage is thoroughly protected. There's no killing goes on here. It's about time this killing nonsense had stopped. So here we go. This is the polytunnel. The polytunnel has been up now for 14 years. It's been hand built. It's not one that you buy in the shops. There are several blogs about this and also several videos about this. The plastic has been in place for 14 years. Tight as a drum and still in fairly good condition. So it may last another few years. We'll see how it goes. Peach tree up there, nectarine, grapevine at the top. And you can see a little bit of entertaining goes on in here as well at times. So we'll continue. Apple trees here, there's a few more apples left to harvest. More apple trees round this way. See down there, spirea. This is a lovely archway made from 2 laurel bushes, and that brings us over towards the cottage, but we're going to go up this way. Sorry if I'm moving the camera fast, but I'm on a fairly limited time span. So this is the Lunacy garden, planted out especially for the bees and the butterflies. So everything in here is specifically for them. Little cherry trees and ribes and buddleia and ornamental apple. And Buddha's sat there looking quite pleased. Little willow archways. Lots of black currants, jostaberries, masses of black currants in along the back there. More black currants here, and jostaberries and red currants. Little willow archways there. There we go. Another oak tree. That oak tree is about 12 years old. And again, absolutely incredible. Looks as though it's been there forever. So you can see habitat piles and also kindling piles. I grow willow. This is the biomass willow. And I wanted to do a willow that people could plant and grow successfully, even if there was deer invading their territory. And of course this is the way to do it, where you pollard it. You let it grow in thick stumps and then you pollard it from the top down. So, okay, lots of compost heaps all over the place. And here's one. There's lots more. I don't bother building anything around them. They're just free-form compost heaps. That's another little orchard up here, fairly recently planted. So there's apple trees in here and cherry. That's where my washing line is, because of course I'm just facing the camera into the west, so you can see that little bit of wind coming in there. So it's the back of the cottage down there. But I'm going to take you on up further. We're going to go right up to the southern edge, to the actual end of the 3 acres, and see some beautiful colours around here today. Just fantastic. This is a little drainage ditch which I had dug in the early days, because of course there's quite a hill behind the cottage, and there's a lot of water runs off that hill when there are heavy rainstorms. So this is my little wild edge, of course, which is, anyone practicing permaculture will be familiar with this. I have been planting into the wild edge, and you can see Mahonia over there, little birch trees. The ferns have all come here on their ownio. And spirea, this is a little pear tree, and sycamore, and lots of fuchsia. This is a beautiful little microclimate going along here, because again, the density of planting, but also I think because I created this stone circle, and I think wherever you have stones in a circle you've got energy, and there's definitely some beautiful energy going on here. So this is my little stone circle, and these are little prayer flags that are hanging up. Subscribers to Bealtaine Cottage send any little prayers or wishes or dreams or thoughts or whatever it is they want to offer up to whatever they believe in, and they're hung here on the willow arches within the stone circle, and they just biodegrade naturally and fall back down towards Mother Earth, and she takes them all up. So we're almost now at the end of the tour. It's a very quick tour. I haven't got to the cottage yet, but we'll get there. So this is the very edge of the property here, and little wild edge, little hidden area actually, I sometimes like just to come up here with a cup of tea and sort of hide from everything. This is a sweet chestnut tree. We're hoping to get